When it comes to the self-inflicted wounds, when you look at the list of them, and you go through them in the book, did you make enough mistakes yourself to lose the election without any of the other things you talk about?
Well, I will say no, Matt. I don't think that will surprise you.
Wow, you know, Matt asked the right question there. Welcome back to Hardball. That was Hillary Clinton, of course, talking about her 2016 defeat on the Today Show this morning. Secretary Clinton opened up about the factors that led to her loss, and then she didn't hold back when asked who she thinks bears the brunt of the blame from her. Let's watch.
I think the determining factor was the intervention by Comey on October 28th. It stopped my momentum. It drove voters from me. And so I think that, in terms of my personal defeat, was the most important factor. I was just dumbfounded. I thought, what is he doing? The investigation was closed. I know there's no new information. I feel very strongly that he went way beyond his role in doing what he did.
Despite her words on Comey, Secretary Clinton doesn't agree with President Trump's firing of the former FBI director.
When you heard the news that James Comey had been fired by President Trump, what was your immediate reaction?
He was fired for the wrong reason.
But should have been fired?
He should not have been fired for Russia. He should have been disciplined. Whether or not fired, that's not for me to say, but he should have been disciplined for the way that he behaved on the email investigation.
We're on The View today. Clinton was asked about her 2016 primary rival, Bernie Sanders.
I know what it's like to lose because I lost in 2008 to President Obama. As soon as I lost, I turned around, I endorsed him. I worked hard for him. I was arguing with my supporters at the Denver convention in 2008 about why they had to quit complaining that I didn't win and get out and support Barack Obama. And I didn't get that respect from him and his supporters.
Well, let's bring in the Hardball Roundtable. Sophia Nelson's a contributor to NBCNews.com. Eli Stokols is White House reporter for the Wall Street Journal and an MSNBC political analyst. And Eugene Robbins, of course, is a columnist with the Washington Post and our serious hero here. Gene, I want to ask you about this. We all have to be somewhat prudent in going after this because it's very personal with Hillary Clinton. She lost, and she has a right to blame whoever she wants, I suppose. How do you calculate what particular thing or person cost the election when there's so many variables?
Well, I don't think you can. I mean, from her point of view, she was way ahead in the polls before the Comey intervention. She did seem to have momentum. I get all that. But this is not possible to quantify, I don't think. And for example, had she done better in Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, she would be president today. Well, did the Comey intervention only have an impact in those states, or you know, it was broader? How do you pinpoint that? I don't think you can actually say that, although one can understand why she would feel it.
I thought it was a good question by Matt Lauer, my colleague, and I really think he's great at it. He's got sort of a Bogart-esque kind of way of asking questions. He does it with some charm, but he pretty much nailed her and got her to say it's not my fault, which I'm not sure was the total point of the book. I think she wanted to take some blame. But this makes it look like it's somebody else's fault. I'm not sure this was the subtlety she hoped for in that book writing.
Well, I think that I think it's fair to say I'm a Republican woman who voted for Hillary Clinton. And I can tell you that there were other Republican women I know and other women who were on the fence about her. And when the Comey thing happened, they said, I can't do it. I'm not doing the Clinton drama again.
Well, that was about Anthony Weiner and Huma's typewriter, their laptop, and it didn't offer any new information. My problem with Comey was, why did he just run that thing through his system, find out if there's anything that it was probative, useful in the investigation, and say there's nothing to it, and get it over within 3 or 4 hours, because that's all it took. It didn't take 10 or 11 days to Election Day.
I think Hillary's got a point when she talks about Comey, when she talks about misogyny, when she talks about all the things she talks about, but she's got a point. The problem is she lost. It may be cathartic for her. It's not cathartic for Democrats, and it makes her look, when she's sitting there saying, I take responsibility, and then saying, I didn't make any mistakes, it makes her look sort of two-faced, or like she's trying to have it both ways. The biggest problem, when she said that question that Lauer asked was perfect about, did you make mistakes? And she said, I don't think so. I think her biggest mistake was trying not to make mistakes, running such a risk-averse, formulaic, data-driven campaign that looked almost bloodless next to what Trump was doing. they just thought they could sort of follow follow the playbook and get there, and they just sort of misread the electorate and a lot of things. I think that was a big mistake. Did she make a gaffe every day?
Agree.
No, but that's not what this campaign was about.
Yeah.
There's another
She didn't
factor,
connect.
though. There was a lot of Clinton fatigue out there. I mean, and I mean, let's face it. She was probably, perhaps, the best candidate Democrats could have put up, but she lost to Donald Trump. I mean, that, you can't lose to Donald Trump.
I still, Gene,
and
think it's the
say,
biggest news.
I didn't make any mistakes.
I think
You
every
can't
time I get up in the morning, I say the biggest news today, no matter what else happens, is that Trump, freaking
president.
Trump, is president of the United States.
That's
I still can't get over
Exactly.
it. It still blows me away because it's not the way things work. People generally are offended by the language he used. It was awful.
But
And I don't care about his talk about
But it was a backlash to this
Right.
idea about the
He
way things
connected
work.
with
People didn't
people.
want to be told,
Yeah, he did.
you can't vote for
Well,
this guy.
Hillary's argument to follow it through was that she already carried California by about 3.5, 4 million votes. She carried New York by a couple million. Would she have carried it even more, those states, if this thing hadn't happened with Comey? Would she have carried California by 5 million votes, New York by 4 million votes? I mean, I just wondered, was that one of you guys raised the question, how come it only really seemed to affect the highly
Gene
difficult, hard-hit industrial areas where she lost?
Well, and the answer is no. I don't think it just affected those states. I think it had whatever impact it had. It was a broader impact.
Yeah.
But I think it's pretty undeniable that the Clinton campaign missed what was happening in those Rust Belt states.
With all their
There
micro,
is a plausible-
all their micro data
But Sophia?
come
But
through.
there is a plausible argument, though, when we're talking about Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and those blue. I grew up in South Jersey, right outside of Philly. You know what that's like there. That's blue-collar territory. She didn't connect with white voters in this country. Let's just get the 800-pound elephant out the room. Trump did. He tapped into this anger, this fatigue, this frustration, and Hillary ran a straight-laced campaign, and she didn't connect with people's pain, their frustration, the racial tensions, the demographic changes in America. All of those things were in the room.
And what would she have said if you were sitting next to her 3 weeks before the election, said, you got to change your tune. You got a lot of money out there to spend. You can get the right message out. You're not addressing this white anger.
There were people that told her that. Her husband told her that.
Yeah,
she didn't listen.
I know he did.
She didn't listen. Simple. I don't have anything else I can say. She didn't listen.
Well, it's also true, though, if there had been a bigger African-American turnout,
True.
Obama-level African-American turnout in Milwaukee, in Columbus and Cleveland, in Philadelphia,
Detroit.
she would be president today.
I know that. That's
those
another
other
argument.
states-
That's
And
why
those,
this-
well,
because
because
of Comey.
Obama had a unique
Yeah.
ability to bring people out.
Okay,
He didn't-
he's also Obama. I mean,
Yes, no,
he is
look,
Obama. What about
first
this
ballot
Bernie
Hall of
fight?
Fame
The
politician.
last stone thrown here by Hillary Clinton seems to be, also, she's getting a little nervous, but I think, is that blaming Bernie. And that means something tomorrow, the next day, 2020. Bernie's still out there campaigning. He's got more, you're wincing, but to a lot of people, people at the other end of the age spectrum like him.
Okay.
They like,
Well, I mean, you just got this
And
Democratic
she doesn't
Party.
like him.
The Democratic Party's trying to turn the page, trying to figure out its identity going forward into next year's election and obviously 2020. And this is just keeping the page turned back to 2016. The Bernie-Hillary fight, that's really the fight for the soul of the Democratic
And
Party.
Biden
seems
was
to be
supposed to get
keeping
in.
it going.
Pretend that Bernie didn't put his finger on something, because he really did. Who were the candidates who had the position of universal health care? Bernie Sanders and initially Donald Trump. Who were the candidates?
Well,
who
Hillary's
talked about
one of the few
who talked
lo-
about trade in a different way? Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump.
in all the years of watching this, like you and I, Gene, I have to tell you, Hillary Clinton is one of the few losers who lost primary fights and then went on and really helped the general election candidate.
It's true.
Because most of the time, Gene McCarthy, go through the list. Teddy Kennedy,
Kennedy.
they didn't help. They didn't help. Anyway, the roundtable's sticking with us, and up next, these three will tell me something I don't know.
You're watching MSNBC International.
Tomorrow's headlines before they go to print.
I've just been handed some great reporting.
The 11th Hour with Brian Williams. Weeknights on MSNBC.
Behold, Andrea got him to speak, finally. Watch.
Mr. Secretary, North Korea is now threatening preemptive action. Can you say whether you think that's a dangerous escalation, sir?
No comment today. Thanks.
Any comment on the NATO meetings? Thank you.
He did speak. That's progress. It was, to be specific, no comment today. Thanks. See you tomorrow. 7 words. Got to start somewhere.
Hardball with Chris Matthews, only on MSNBC. The Last Word with Lawrence O'Donnell, only on MSNBC.
Senator Bernie Sanders today unveiled his Medicare for All plan, a proposal that would transition the country to a government-run health care system that would provide coverage for all Americans. At least 16 Democratic senators have signed on to co-sponsor the bill, including potential 2020 candidates like Senators Elizabeth Warren, of course, Cory Booker, and Kamala Harris. When Sanders put forth similar legislation back in 2013, not a single Democrat signed on as a co-sponsor. We're still waiting to hear the arithmetic. We'll be right back.
You're watching MSNBC International.
We will not be quiet.
This guy's behavior doesn't make any sense.
We will remain resolute.
This doesn't look good, General.
Asking what others aren't asking.
Why would the president want Congress to investigate for information he already has?
And wake up ready to do it again.
Flight 800, we had reports of a plane down, absent any graphics. We weren't quite up to the challenge of an instant map. There was a young man on our staff who remembered he had a road atlas in his trunk showing New York's Long Island. Without that, we wouldn't have had any visuals, any graphics at all. I remember seeing the flickering. That's fuel burning on the surface of the Atlantic Ocean. It was so sad for so many reasons.
Tomorrow's headlines before they go to print.
I've just been handed some great reporting.
Tomorrow's questions before anyone's asked them.
Could you make an obstruction case?
Tomorrow's conversation tonight.
Who is there to speak truth to power?
Not a single person.
The 11th Hour with Brian Williams. Weeknights on MSNBC.
Before it was the biggest political scandal in history, before it lent its name to every other scandal for 40 years, it was just an office building, the Watergate. What happened here changed history because there were reporters who never stopped asking questions. For my generation, the questions were about WMDs in Iraq, and we learned, again, don't just accept the official line. Now, who knows where the questions will take us, but I do know this. I'm not going to stop asking them.
Learn how you can help provide desks for schools in Malawi at lastworddesks.msnbc.com and watch The Last Word with Lawrence O'Donnell weeknights on MSNBC. Hardball with Chris Matthews, only on MSNBC.
We're back with the Hardball Roundtable. Sophia, tell me more of what I don't know. You've already been pretty good tonight. Go ahead.
I tell you what, there's an underreported story where the United States has sent troops to Poland in fear of a Russian land grab there. Newsweek reporting that, but nobody's talking about it.
A Russian land grab?
Yeah, they think so. We've sent some troops over there. We've sent some military folks over there to Poland to defend.
This is 1939?
I don't know what it is, but that's something we ought to be thinking about. Talking the Russians are at it again.
You're sure about this?
Newsweek reported it before I.
Okay, great. Eli.
The president this afternoon met with Tim Scott, the African-American Republican senator from South Carolina at the White House. Scott requested the meeting, wanted to talk about the president's response to Charlottesville. We don't know too much about the meeting. Scott says he expressed displeasure at the president's initial response, also that the president has obviously reconsidered his response, but we didn't see much of that. We just got a very short readout from the White House saying that everything was great. They're interested in improving
what did the
race
senators
relations,
say about
and they
meeting?
actually called Tim Scott Tom Scott in the White House readout of the conversation.
That's not helpful.
That's what we got.
I think he's the saxophonist. Go ahead.
While here in the East and most of the country, we're talking about the hurricanes, how incredibly wet it has been in Houston and in Florida. Out in the Pacific Northwest, they're talking about how hot and how dry it has been. In Portland, there's a pall in the air from big forest fires, including one of the kind they've never seen before. We're going to talk about climate change in this country.
Is Mother
We should
Nature
do it
talking
now.
to us,
We're going to
Jane?
do it eventually, but we better talk
keep listening to Al Gore. Anyway, Sophia Nelson, thank you. Eli Stokols and Eugene Robinson. When we return.